I'm CWO4 Victor Pinion, U.S. Navy retired, telling some stories of my naval career. This story surrounds me going to the USS Midway, which was home ported at Yokosuka, Japan, for a 3-year tour of duty as the Catapult Rescue Gear Visual Landing Aids Maintenance Officer. My family and I had to get some physical examinations and so forth, and get passports for wife and children and so forth. And I went to a school at San Diego to learn about equipment aboard the Midway that I'd never worked with. And but before I went there to the school, I had gotten word that the Midway had a fatal loss of aircraft accident when her #1 catapult failed to accelerate this A-7 Corsair enough to fly. And it splashed in the sea in a deep part of the Pacific Ocean and never recovered the aircraft or the pilot. This was the very accident that Lieutenant Dave Deese had predicted when he had recruited me to go to the Midway. It was a catastrophic accident. And when I went to the school, they had gotten the JAG and accident reports, investigation reports, which both the aircraft accident investigation and the JAG investigation had failed to find the exact cause of the catapult malfunctioning. Both of them said unexplained mechanical failure. At the school, they knew a lot of details about how the catapult had been operated and so forth. And it was being operated illegally in that they had a failed component in the control circuit of the catapult. And they were supposed to have cut that out of the circuit and shifted to an alternate operating mode, which they had not done. And the school was confused about why they had not done that. Okay, well, I didn't get any answers to my questions at the school except to learn that machinery. In any case, my family and I caught a flight from Travis Air Force Base in Central California to Japan. And we landed at Air Force Base and caught a bus from there on to Yokosuka. And we arrived at the Navy Lodge where we had reservations on the base at Yokosuka. Well, where we learned that we would go through a 3-day orientation session welcoming us to Japan by the Midway Dependents Assistance Team. They call it Midway DAT. Well, they taught us special things about Japan and customs and so forth, and helped us get driver's licenses and so forth. We had to go to a special driving school to get our driver's license, which Lynette, my wife, and I did. And we learned that there was no Navy housing available for us, either at Yokosuka or elsewhere in Japan for a few months. We stayed at the Navy Lodge for a couple of weeks, and then the housing office helped us to find a rental house off base on the other side of the peninsula, where we rented a little Japanese house, an old one, where we lived for a year and a half. And we had some wonderful experiences living off base there. And I reported aboard. The officer that I was relieving had been aboard for 1 year, and he left the next day. He gave me a little note with a little introduction to the senior people in B2 Division, which I read and took it with a grain of salt. He liked the catapult chief. He did not like any of the first class petty officers for some reason. In any case, he named this one first class petty officer that worked directly for him as the dud of the division. I decided, well, I'll make my own mind up about that. An old friend of mine that I'd been stationed with in Massachusetts and aboard the Ranger had transferred from the Ranger to the Midway when the Midway was first home ported in Japan. And now he was on shore duty at Sugi. His name, ABE-1 Brian Dugan. He was a good friend, good man. Well, he called on the day we arrived and invited us to his house for a barbecue, and he came, picked us up the following day after our indoctrination sessions. Took us to his house, and he, where we reacquainted with his wife and his two fine boys. He told me that the cat chief from the Midway was on leave, and he lived right around the corner from him. So he called him on the phone, and the chief said, well, y'all come on over. So we did. Well, the chief opened the door for us. He had a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey in his hand, and he was drinking directly from the bottle. It was about half gone. And so I questioned him a little bit about drinking whiskey right from the bottle. He said, yeah, it's open now. He said, I'll take the cap off, I'll throw it in the trash, and I'll drink it just like you would a bottle of beer. The man was a severe alcoholic, and he did that every day. Well, my warning flags went up. The CAFSU rep was an old CAFSU rep named Herb Berlin. He had had a heart attack, and he was in the Yokosuka hospital. And I went and visited him in his hospital room, and we chatted and so forth. And he welcomed me to Japan. He felt pretty good. It was a minor heart attack, if there is such a thing. He recovered pretty quickly. But he was the CAFSU supervisor for the Western Pacific. The regular CAFSU rep there was the youngest, newest higher CAFSU rep that the Navy had. And he had been there for 4 months. And I'll tell about him in the next video. Y'all carry on.